Hi there, welcome to the Cotswold Explorer. I'm Robin Shuckburgh, and today we're bringing you a little film about the locations for the filming of Downton Abbey. Now, we've done a little bit of this before, but we never believed how long this whole Downton Abbey phenomenon would last. The new film, it's called A New Era, has just been released. It's very exciting. The reviews are fantastic. We're going to introduce you again to one or two of the locations near our home. We're starting here at Cogs Farm, an extraordinary place just outside Witney. It's a farm museum, really. It's beautiful. Behind me you see this wonderful medieval farmhouse. We're going to show you around. Come with me. Cogs Farm is just on the outskirts of the town of Witney, a few miles from my home. I've known it as a place to visit with my children as long as I like to remember, but these days it's showing all the signs of optimism and excitement that you expect when great management and enthusiastic workers and volunteers coincide. It's a medieval farm museum. You'll find animals from ponies and goats to ducks, not to mention a wandering cat. Wonderful soaring barns with spectacular oak-beamed roofs, and a medieval farmhouse with an astonishing history laid out as if almost undisturbed for several hundred years. Towards the end of the third TV series, the locations people for Downton Abbey were warned by Julian Fellowes that they would need an ancient farm in which to film for Series 4. Sparky Ellis, the locations manager for the series, happened to be in the butcher's in Bampton when he heard the news, and asked Ollie the butcher if he knew of anywhere locally. Cogs Farm was the obvious and immediate answer. If you visit this wonderful place, you can hear Sparky relate this tale in the sitting room of the farmhouse on what looks like one of the earliest televisions ever made. He will tell you that Cogs was an extremely rare, perfect location, which met all their needs without the usual changes and adaptations that the set designers have to cope with. Cogs was turned into Yew Tree Farm for Downton Abbey. Filmed in the manor house kitchen as well as the grounds, Yew Tree Farm is home to the Drew family in Series 4 and 5, where Lady Edith's child is brought up, and later home to Mr. Mason in Series 6. Dame Maggie Smith and characters Tom Branson, Lady Edith and Lady Mary all appeared here in various episodes. It's obvious from the moment you arrive at Cogs that it's extremely special. It's been a museum now for over 40 years, and ironically, perhaps it's that which makes it feel so incredibly authentic. We will be visiting 3 different kinds of film set during this episode from the Cotswold Explorer. 1, the villages where as soon as the film crews leave, the village does its best to revert to normal life. 2, a village owned by the National Trust that feels almost as though it was built as a film set. And then Cogs, where you really feel as if you're going back into the Middle Ages to get a glimpse of what life was like at that time. Cogs sits on the River Windrush, and a Saxon settlement grew up here from 500 AD. The manor is listed in the Domesday Book, and a house was built here in the 1100s. Ownership of the place changed often, but in the 1550s, Henry VIII gave the manor to Sir Thomas Pope, the founder of Trinity College, Oxford. It was he and his family who seem to have built the farmhouse you see today, incorporating outbuildings already existing into the courtyard layout. You can find a marble effigy of Sir Thomas in Trinity College Chapel, in full medieval armour. The museum has a great cafe, an interesting shop, and although we don't spend a lot of time recommending businesses on this channel, I really do suggest you come to this place. And bring any stray children you can lay your hands on. They'll love it. If you do, the whole story of the filming of Downton here will be related to you as you go round the house. We're now going back to Bampton. Now I know we've been there many times, but we have a very special guest. Come with me. Heading the few miles to Bampton to meet our special guest, we'll drop in on a couple of the smaller locations used in the series. Firstly, a couple of miles up the road towards Burford is the little hamlet of Swinbrook. The romance between Lady Sybil and Branson, her chauffeur, was quite the scandal in Downton, so their meetings needed to be in a remote place for their relationship to stay secret. It was here, in the Swan pub in Series 2, that they planned their elopement amidst much drama. The village pub in real life is owned by the Devonshire family from Chatsworth in Derbyshire, and the long history of the village's relationship with the Mitford sisters is related in the letters and photographs on the walls. In the village church are some of the most renowned church monuments in the area, a tomb of the Fettyplace family, stacked one above one another to save space in this tiny church, portrayed lying on one side, resting their heads on their hands in various styles of dress according to their period. It's a remarkable sight and well worth a visit. We then head south, cross the A40 near Burford, heading towards Carterton, where we need to drive slowly so as not to miss the turning to the village of Shilton. The road takes you down into the valley on your right, over a ford, often a good foot or more deep, and into an extremely peaceful and pretty village. The real pub here, called the Rose and Crown, is great and will provide you with wonderful refreshment and hospitality, but perhaps a little strangely for them, in Downton, the building called the Old Forge, about 200 yards away, just next to the ford, was transformed by the brilliant set designers into a fictional pub. You can see why it was they chose this lovely place to film, but also why this village works hard to settle back down to normal life once they're gone. From here it's just half a dozen miles to Bampton, the location of the village of Downton. The Crawley's house, the church in which the funerals and marriages, both successful and otherwise, took place, and of course the cottage hospital. So here we are in my hometown of Bampton. We've been here before, of course, and if you want to see a lot more about this extraordinary village, there are several films on our channel for you to look at. But it's an extremely opportune moment because we are about to open the newly restored Old Grammar School. It's a project that's been on the boil for a very long time. In fact, before Downton Abbey was even a glimmer in the eye of Julian Fellowes. I'm going to leave it to someone much grander than I am to tell you a little bit about the story. Here's Lord Grantham.
This is the Downton Cottage Hospital, where Lady Sybil helped Dr. Clarkson treat recuperating soldiers during the First World War, and where Mrs. Hughes came when she feared she might be seriously ill. The hospital in real life is the Old Grammar School at Bampton in Oxfordshire, one of the main locations for the series.
Hello there, I'm Hugh Bonneville, and that was me more than 7 years ago, walking around the wonderful but slightly dilapidated 17th century grammar school in Bampton. Since then, the people of Bampton, with the help of the local councils, an assortment of benefactors, and the support of tens of thousands of Downton Abbey fans, have achieved amazing things. First, the roof needed to be completely overhauled. For the first time in over 100 years, each Cotswold stone tile was carefully removed, meticulously trimmed and then reused. Only where absolutely necessary were new tiles of a similar age, sourced from elsewhere. Now the roof is good for another 100 years. In the 1960s, the top floor of this building was isolated for reasons of safety, and the staircase removed. So the next great step was to reinstate the stairs and to restore the top floor, whilst taking the opportunity to bring the ground floor up to scratch as well. This would be expensive. So the team at the Bampton Community Archive, with the help of the landlords, the Bampton Exhibition Foundation, set about raising the huge amount of money needed.
Well, this project has been very exciting, but I have to admit, it's something of a long and winding road. We started before Downton Abbey was even thought of, and we've raised and spent just shy of £400,000. It's a mind-boggling sum, and I can't tell you how proud I am of my neighbours and friends who've supported the effort. We raised around half that sum through grants, and the rest through great fundraising ideas and good old-fashioned commerce.
Downton Abbey fans played no small part in this effort. When I visited the village for the BBC a few years later, I saw for myself the amazing number of people from all parts of the world who had been coming to Bampton. A map on the wall with pins stuck into it by visitors to show where they came from clearly demonstrated the worldwide attraction of the series. Among the many fundraising initiatives was one called the Downton Mile. 71,527 £1 coins laid end to end reach a mile. An incredible 38,135 coins have been donated to this mile so far, the majority by Downton visitors. The newly restored building will be used as a community hub in Bampton. The village library, situated on the ground floor for decades now, has a brand new layout, bringing the village a modern facility to meet its needs. The ground floor shop will provide local craft and art for visitors from around the world, and the upper floor will provide an incredible space for talks, exhibitions, courses, film shows, any activity that has an educational purpose.
So there we are. We're moving on now from my wonderful hometown of Bampton, and we're going to visit a village that in some ways took over from Bampton in the filming of Downton Abbey. We're heading for the glorious National Trust village of Laycock. Come with me. We're headed south, further south indeed than the Cotswold explorer has ever ventured, to visit what is perhaps the most photographed village in the whole of the south of England. It's been in a great many films and television programmes, including Downton Abbey, and its classic stone-built Cotswold cottages, barns and spectacular abbey, long since converted into a private home by the Fox-Talbot family, are imprinted onto the camera chips of millions of people from all over the world. In fact, in an appropriate twist of fate, it is the birthplace of the whole photographic industry. The negative imaging printing process was invented here. It's the village of Laycock in Wiltshire. Several years ago, when the first Downton movie was being planned, Sparky Ellis, the locations manager I mentioned earlier, came to Bampton one day and apologised to me for the fact that our village was not to be featured for more than a few seconds in the film. They had chosen to use Laycock for all the dramatic village scenes. He admitted that there had been some talk that Bampton wouldn't be required at all, but that he had persuaded the powers that be that at least the church should feature, and perhaps it would be unfair to leave us out altogether. Laycock had been ruled out of the earlier TV series because when Downton was in development, the team had just finished filming Gosford Park. They had exhausted almost all the suitable locations near London, including Laycock, and the discovery of Bampton for the Downton Village location was a huge relief to them. But by the time the Downton movie came along, the memory of Gosford Park had faded, and Laycock once more looked a highly attractive location prospect. It belongs to the National Trust, making it much more simple to negotiate the arrival of a film crew, and the villagers are so used to the process that it comes as second nature to them. There is also extremely little in the way of expensive disguising of the 20th century that has to be done. All in all, it's a perfect film set. And so, Ross and I discovered something rather strange in Laycock. We came away from here wondering why we hadn't enjoyed our visit nearly as much as we had expected to. It hadn't felt right somehow. Now I know we're spoiled rotten. We spend our time wandering the fabulously beautiful hills of the Cotswolds, searching out the most unspoiled and peaceful places to show you all. And I know that on the face of it, Laycock is a perfectly preserved example of exactly what we're looking for. But there, I think, lies its problem. It's all a little too perfect. It actually feels like a film set. As you walk the streets, you expect any minute to see someone wandering around in period costume or to hear the clatter of horse and carriage. It doesn't feel real. In fact, it isn't. If you've got this far in this film, you will have seen already that I am genuinely grateful for the way in which the devotees of Downton Abbey have helped me and my team to restore the 17th century old grammar school in Bampton. I can honestly say that in all the years they've been coming, I haven't met with anything but courtesy, enthusiasm, generosity and kindness from any of them, from wherever in the world they come. They visit Bampton in exactly the same way that I, for years, have been visiting the villages of Italy, from Liguria to Puglia, drinking in the beauty of the surroundings and dreaming of living in such a blessed place. The danger, probably unavoidable in this day and age, is that by my very presence in, for instance, Assisi, I contributed to the turning of what was, when I first visited in about 1959, a peaceful, dreamy, spiritual place, into the teeming hodgepodge of souvenir shops and cafes it has become. Laycock is perhaps the first of the Assisis of the Cotswolds, quickly to be followed, I fear, by many others, like Bybury or Bolton-on-the-Water. Stunningly beautiful, but impossible to live in. It would be the height of hypocrisy for me to try and argue that we should in some way hide away the beauty of our countryside in order to keep it feeling real, lived in, and genuinely local. After all, I've spent 6 years telling all who will listen to come and see this wonderful place. But I'm not entirely certain that the general solution lies in the approach of the National Trust, which is to preserve for the benefit of the nation. I am uneasy that if we are not careful, the whole of the Cotswolds might well turn into a giant Laycock. I do hope you've enjoyed our quick spin around some of the Downton Abbey locations. It's been great fun for us, and I do want to thank Hugh Bonneville for his incredibly strong and loyal support to us over our rebuilding of the old grammar school. It's been wonderful. Enjoy the film. I've seen the reviews. It sounds fantastic. I'm looking forward to seeing it myself. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. You can find us on all the normal platforms, and we'll see you back in the Cotswolds in the very near future. Goodbye. Since the Cotswold Explorer launched its Easter special, many of you have been kind enough to ask about my lovely new hat. It's an amazing thing. I often buy a new hat at Easter time, so I went out looking. I went to my favourite outdoor shop in Burford called Elms. Elm of Burford, an amazing place. And I discovered that they are agents for Akubra hats, and that's why I am now the proud possessor of this beautiful Australian handmade hat. It's fantastic, but it has a story behind it, because in the 1960s, I spent an entire year in Queensland in Australia working as a jackaroo. Very first thing they did to me when I arrived in my 1960s uniform of pink jeans and a tie-dye t-shirt was to send me out to get a hat. I went and bought a hat just like this, and it stayed with me for the entire year. I lost it on the way home off the deck of the SS Orsovo whilst sailing round the Cape of Africa. into the maelstrom of the southern oceans, and I've regretted it ever since. In the last week, I've got another one, and I'm thrilled. So thank you very much to Elms and Burford. I hope you like it.